Laura's testimony of God and Jesus. I'm Laura Annalyn Ellis. Okay, so all of this took place in California. It was July 16th, 2023, when I first met my last ex-boyfriend. Let's call him T. In Clear Lake through an app when I moved in with my mom and her fiance in Lake County. And I didn't know anybody, so I figured to meet some people. He took me to watch the sunset, drank some beers, went to the dock, took me to his place, then drove me home. That happened for 4 months, usually on the weekends. Then I met his mom and grandma, both for the first time, on November 3rd, 2023, at Blue Wing Saloon Restaurant in Upper Lake. And after dinner, all of us went to Worldmark in Nice, where his mom and grandma stayed at since his grandma was only there for a short visit. T and I stayed with them for a bit, went outside, sat on the chairs, and talked. All of them were smoking weed except for me, as I didn't want to be high the first time meeting his mom and grandma. I was shocked seeing them smoke weed, considering it was their first time meeting me too. I'm not used to that, but I didn't make a big deal out of it. Then T and I left. On November 16th, 2023, it was my birthday in which I turned 24. T took me to Blue Wing Saloon Restaurant in Upper Lake, and after dinner, we stayed at Worldmark in Nice for 2 nights, where T asked me to be his girlfriend. It made me feel very special, and on top of that, he told me his parents helped him decorate for my birthday at Worldmark too, so it made me feel even more special. And knowing that, I knew how close he was to his parents, which was a good thing. On November 18th, 2023, we decided to live together. I planned to relocate since I couldn't work at the places I applied at near my mom's home, and T offered that I could stay with him instead of relocating, so I agreed, especially since he lived close to downtown in which I could work at. I was desperate for a job. Unfortunately, on December 11th, 2023, I decided to consume large amounts of pills to take my life while T was at work. I laid down in bed and closed my eyes. When God opened my eyes, T was laying on his stomach in bed next to me, just calmly looking at my face. I went to the toilet to puke out the medicines, while he went outside the apartment to call poison control. Around 6 p.m., he drove me to the emergency room at Adventist Health in Clear Lake, in which I stayed at for 2 nights. My first time staying at an ER for 2 nights. Reminder, I was obedient to the rules, respectful, and patient in my entire stay, despite the mistreatment I have endured. When I got to the ER, the only good things that happened in my entire stay was one female staff that provided me with a blanket after some time when I arrived. The nutritionist, she was very kind, who arrived the second day requested by the chaplain, the security guards who arrived the second night, and one male staff who was very helpful and kind. Ultimately, the nutritionist, one of the guards, and the male staff seemed the most genuine than the rest of the workers there. There were questionable instances that caused me to be suspicious due to the way they acted and handled things, which never occurred to me before in previous ERs I've been to. The questionable instances that occurred the first night at Adventist Health in Clear Lake on December 11th, 2023 were, I was asked for my social security number around 5 times. I was not given charcoal upon arrival or anything to help with my overdose, except for taping wires onto my body and some water. Inadequate food required for a patient, staff were disrespectful and uncaring when T was not around. T was allowed to stay inside the actual room with me in the ER without a guard as much as he pleased and for however long he wanted, including him closing the curtain, which blocks the staff's view from seeing me in the room. No guard until the second night. Usually, there is a guard at all times in ERs in relation to patients who are suicidal. Chaplain approached me without my request. Usually, chaplains only approach patients upon request in ERs. A patient next room to me continuously screamed, "Stop!" which sounded extremely concerning, etc. The questionable instances that occurred the second night at Adventist Health in Clear Lake on December 12, 2023 were: they disallowed me to put my mom's phone number on the emergency contact list, nor allowed me to call her. Violation of patients' rights. And shortly after, they decided to transport me to Adventist Health Vallejo in a white basic car instead of an ambulance. Usually, ERs transport patients in an ambulance. Well, something happened during the transportation. During the transportation, I was brought outside by walking from my room to the parking lot. We passed a parked red ambulance and led me to a white basic car with 2 guards behind it and a guy with casual clothing. I've seen the guy with casual clothing before with T at the grocery store in Clear Lake called Foods, in which both of them stopped in their tracks and made eye contact, but I never questioned T about it. All I knew at that time was he looked familiar, and I couldn't exactly recall where I saw him from until the next day. I took forever to get in the car as my intuition was screaming for me not to get in, especially after the mistreatment and various suspicious activities that occurred in the ER. The female staff called for more staff to have me get in the car. They pushed me slightly to get in, shut the door, and the driver was the guy with the casual clothing. The car had a clear plastic or glass partition between the front and back seat. All I could think about before and after regarding the white car was God and my intense intuition telling me not to get in the car and to get out once I was in. I tried to make small talk with the driver, but something felt extremely off and I couldn't shake the feeling of needing to escape due to my intuition, so I unlocked the car door, but when I pulled the handle to open it, it didn't open because it was on child lock. I finally escaped by kicking the window down with both of my legs with all of the strength I had, and the window was slowly coming out of its frame from the top. And when I could see that I had enough space for my body to get through, that's when I put my upper body through the window while the car was still running. Then I pushed myself out of the car. Fell on the road with the window shattering under me. Blacked out for a few seconds, woke up and started running for my life. In that moment, it felt like it was just me and God while I was running. I climbed over barbed wire fences, crawled through bushes and dirt. I went on the road for people to see me in hopes to give me a ride to my mom. No one would stop their car for me, and I don't blame them, because I was in my ripped blue paper hospital clothes, had scratches all over from the barbed wire fences and twigs. Twigs in my hair from the bushes. Instead of cops approaching, I noticed there were these cars following me. They were strangers whom I didn't know. Some with slightly beat up cars, some with expensive cars, trucks, etc. At that point, I was simply confused, especially when one particular driver, who was one of the people that were creepily following me, started laughing. How can someone laugh at my situation right now when I clearly need help? I thought. Beyond mental comprehension, no sympathy whatsoever. I kept running to get away from everyone. I did not feel safe. I ended up on the Slitter Island near a roundabout trying to get a ride from cars passing by from both sides. Eventually, one side of the road was blocked because no one was coming and going anymore except for the strangers who were following me after I escaped the white car which parked next to the Splitter Island just before the roundabout. I wondered why they didn't ask me if I needed help, so I approached some of them and asked them for help, but most of them were so calm and careless about the situation. It was abnormal and weird. One lady that I approached told me, "We know each other." Talking about the other cars and people outside following me, I took a bunch of steps back from her car. All I could think of is, am I in the Matrix? What is going on? I tried to borrow a cell phone, and when this woman let me type in my mom's phone number in, she snatched her phone right out of my hands right when I was about to click the call button. I just looked at her in silence and utter disappointment. There were two young men wearing police clothes. One of them was wearing an opposite color of cop's clothes, which was blue top and brown bottom, and I told him he wasn't a real cop. But despite if they were real cops or not, it didn't matter, because they were corrupt and it was me against multiple immoral souls. While my back was facing the roundabout and most of them were behind me, I felt two people grab both of my arms and one of the cops handcuffed me. I was confused as to why he handcuffed me when I did not give him any reason to precipitate that. It was extremely strange how there was only one cop car, strangers in their cars and out of their cars whom I didn't know and were following me when I escaped from the white car, including some staff from the ER. They proceeded to walk me to the stretcher near the ambulance to strap me up and take me back to the ER that I was trying to get away from in the first place. When I got back to the ER, they stopped the water from running in the sink in the room, refused to refill their paper towel box, refused to slant the hospital bed, took away the table and the chair that extends because I lost my privilege due to the problem I just caused. I asked nicely for the handcuff to be unlocked, and I got yelled at to go to your room. So I did. Many staff were standing in front of the ER glass sliding door talking about what just happened, while staring at me in disbelief that I had broken the car window. God gave me the strength to break it. Some of them had tears in their eyes. Some had cried, including the ones that were in the roundabout. Some of them looked guilty, and some of them enjoyed it. While I was sitting on my hospital bed waiting for someone to unlock the handcuff, I looked outside my room to see the chaplain that looked like he had been crying, staring into the abyss, looking down on the floor. I couldn't help but wonder what he was thinking about. Moments later, after they finally unlocked my handcuff, the chaplain asked if he could speak to me, and so I let him in. At that point, I really had no words left to say. We all knew what was going on. At least they did, not so much for me. I was still extremely confused and felt defeated that I was back to that place. So he left the room and I decided to pray to God. I overheard some staff talking about me praying as if they've never seen someone pray before. I was telling God that if I was going to die that night, I surrender my life to Him, asked for forgiveness, and hoped that I'd be in heaven with Him. Now, there are 2 guards outside my door. This was also my first time having 2 guards in an ER. Seems like my name has been slandered for me to have more than 1 guard. Number 1, a nurse approached me and gave me options to sleep. Sleeping pills or injection. I chose pills. Number 2, another nurse came who told me that they were going to inject me because I had a manic episode in the white car due to me breaking the window. I told him, I don't have bipolar disorder, so so I didn't have a manic episode. He left. Number 3. I decided to wrap myself up with a blanket and sit on the chair. The female staff in front of my glass door said loudly, "If she doesn't get on the bed, she's gonna get a shot." The blonde guard said, "You're gonna give her a shot if she doesn't get on the bed? What if she just wants to be comfortable? Whose dog? Whose dog?" God blessed him. I needed someone like him during that time. Number 4. Another nurse with the doctor on speakerphone stood near the blonde guard with the doctor giving reasons as to why I needed a shot. They were coming up with different reasons just to give me a shot. So the male nurses gathered, including the guards. One of the nurses asked me where I wanted to get a shot, on the shoulders, thighs, or butt. I asked, why would I want to get a shot in my butt? And they just laughed. I didn't find anything funny in that whole corrupt, weird situation though. Once I was held down on the bed by everyone, I asked what shots they were giving me. The nurse on the left said Valium, and the nurse on the right said another name. They pulled down my pants, gave me shots on both my thighs, pulled my pants back up. Then the nurse on the left reminded the nurse on the right that the name of the shot he told earlier wasn't even it. The nurse on the right agreed, both laughed, then left. So they gave me a shot illegally. I didn't need it in the first place. I could have simply taken the sleeping pills. And on top of that, to this day, I still don't know what shot the nurse on the right gave me, unless he was saying the truth and they just wanted to play with my mind by changing it up in the end. I fell asleep shortly after that. When I woke up the next morning, I saw a stretcher out in the hallway, which is what was supposed to happen the night before on the 12th, because that means once I'm strapped up on the stretcher, it'll be put in the ambulance, then off we go. I noticed when I was in the ambulance looking out, as we were passing the roundabout, we also passed the area where I jumped out of the white car, which was to my right, as I'm facing the back of the ambulance. The white car the night prior was supposed to take me to Adventist Health Vallejo, just like where the ambulance was taking me. So, how come the white car was driving towards the roundabout the previous night and the ambulance was driving away from the roundabout the next morning, both driving the opposite way? The driver in the white car was certainly going to take me someplace else that night other than Adventist Health Vallejo. It goes to show that my intuition was not wrong after all. God gave me intense intuition and discernment to save me from harm, salvation. I am so glad I listened to God. If I didn't, I don't know where I'd be right now and what would have happened to me. After I got discharged from Adventist Health Vallejo, I was back at Clear Lake with T, even though I did not feel safe with him due to these reasons. 1. The driver in which they seemed to know each other from the store, and the coincidence of him driving the white car was just beyond me. 2. When I was kicking the window to escape, the driver kept saying on the phone, "Angela, what do I do? What do I do?" After telling me he was going to call the cops, and I told him to call the cops, I'd be glad. But instead he called Angela, which is the same name as T's mom. And T told me after this happened that his mom used to transfer patients in white cars or vans countless times before and still do, since she's a case manager and a crisis team for behavioral health who manages the patient's transportation, medicine, etc. Maybe it's another woman with the same name, but only God knows. I may never know who that Angela woman was on the phone, but it was definitely strange how the driver didn't call the cops after telling me he would when I was kicking the window. Excuse me. And how there was only one cop at the roundabout when I finally escaped with multiple strangers following me. It simply screams corruption to my face. I thought, If T was part of what happened regarding the ER due to that guy from the store who made eye contact with him and drove the white car that night and was gonna take me someplace else other than Vallejo, how come I was still breathing if he wanted to hurt me? So, I gave him the benefit of the doubt by staying with him. Well, I realized later that T and the people who are involved do everything covertly. If they didn't do everything covertly, I would have never given him the benefit of the doubt. Deception was at an all-time high. There were times when T gave me food and or water, I'd feel lightheaded, dizzy, intense cramps, nausea, etc. To the point one time I asked him if he put something in the food and he didn't answer me but simply put his head down. Guilty. Before and after I was with him, I've been the healthiest, but during the time I was with him, I was constantly nauseous, had stomach aches, constant fatigue, sudden sleepiness, difficult to breathe, chest pains, itchy skin. No matter how much I inhaled, at times I could never get enough air. And I was constantly wondering why I was feeling all of those symptoms when I've been healthy all my life. And I'd always cook him and I healthy food, and it made sense to me eventually. As the days went on, it just became worse. Constantly instilling fear in me, intimidating me. My symptoms were getting worse from all the things he and or someone else put in my food and drink, etc. There was a time when I wanted to leave him by seeing my mom, and I was afraid that he'd find a way to not let me see her, and I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt again by lying to myself that he wouldn't do that. He's a good person. But I was right. He pretended to act like he didn't know what time I was supposed to see my mom by denying it because he had a tattoo appointment that same day, and he made the time the same time as when my mom and I were going to see each other. I told him to let me know what time his appointment was, and when he told me, I reminded him I was supposed to see my mom that time, and he denied it, saying, "What? You never set a certain time for you?" The day of February 23rd, 2024, of when I was supposed to see my mom and went with him to his tattoo appointment instead, I felt the most sick I'd ever been with him. My tongue was white. He was also constantly showing me photos of people with white tongue ever since we would go on dates throughout our relationship too, but I never questioned him why. Then it made sense. I was falling asleep multiple times. My body was extremely heavy. The sound of the music his tattoo artist was playing sounded enhanced. My jaw felt weird. Whenever I crossed my arms or legs, it would quickly turn numb. I felt so sick that day. I knew that something was put in the food and or drink he gave me that morning on the way to the tattoo place because I was only always with him and no one else but him. Excuse me. Whilst feeling all those symptoms, so there's no way it's mostly someone else putting stuff in my food and or drink. Also, the tattoo place was extremely cold. T also admitted it, and it was done in purpose for whatever weird reason. It was like they knew each other and pretended to not. Just like the driver in the white car where they stopped in their tracks and made eye contact at the store. After the tattoo artist wore some black gloves from the glove box on the wall, 2 black glove boxes filled with gloves, he called his wife on speakerphone while staring intimidatingly into my soul with a low voice, asking her to bring more gloves. And when I looked at T when he said that, T was just scratching his head like he knew what was going on. When the wife arrived, she was holding these pair of blue gloves in her hands when she came in, stared into my soul, and locked the door behind her. What tattoo place locks their door when it's daytime and they're far from closing time? It made me feel like they were gonna do something to me with the gloves she brought. Despite of seeing through all these people's motives and their soul, I just played it off. I was friendly to the tattoo artist and the wife because I was honestly scared for my life. I wanted them to change their minds about hurting me by being nice to them. I was constantly asking God to keep me safe and heal me from the symptoms I was feeling, and that He was more powerful than whatever I consumed and that He could heal me. I was happy that nothing bad happened to me, but T was more frustrated and upset with me right after we left that tattoo place. So I was confused because I didn't do or say anything to upset him, but he was constantly mad about something and I was done fighting, so I just let it go. I left him 3 days after that on February 26, 2024. I wanted to leave before the 23rd, but my ride couldn't get me until the 26th, so I had to wait and it felt like eternity. It was strange how T was extremely eager to have me obtain an EBT card and wanted his mom so badly to do it for me prior to moving in with him. Maybe it was his mom's idea or his idea or both. All I know is that I was being played since the beginning. I was the prey, making it seem like they were helping me when they were truly using other people for their own benefit. He'd put it in his Safeway app for the online order with my name or email so that every time he'd place an online order without me in the card, he can purchase anything whenever. I didn't care at the time, but now it makes sense. T made me his dependent regarding taxes because if I said no, then it would be selfish and that you should get the F out. Despite me having difficulties trusting it because I couldn't trust him to begin with, let alone be his dependent. It was suspicious that T didn't ask for my social security number the second time needing it for the dependent tax when T and his mom did it together until it was already done. It's because him and Dora's mom kept my social security number from the first time they asked for it when they were making my EBT. And since it's already kept, they asked me for my social security number after the dependent tax was already done. My laptop disappeared, and I went to go look for it in his car. I stumbled upon this green notebook which talks about this man named Dave or David, and how he's in hospice, and instead of these people taking care of him, they were slowly killing him from the drugs they were putting in his food and drink. It's disgusting, evil, and beyond wicked. I thought to myself, why would T have this green notebook in his car? Because he wasn't a nurse, he worked for the city. Also, there were names who were familiar to me too from the ER that was on the notebook. The names could be another person with the same name, but God only knows. Lastly, I got gang stalked during the time I was with him and experienced it even more so after I left him. I've never experienced gang stalking before until I met him.